Welcome, dear friend, as we continue this quiet journey together. Tonight, you are invited to listen to ancient wisdom, softly carried through time by silent masters who understood the art of calming the restless mind. Within these teachings lie gentle keys to a depth of rest and clarity you may have forgotten was ever within reach. Wherever you are, and whatever hour the night has reached for you, know that this space is held with care. What you are about to hear is a thoughtful gathering of timeless Zen stories, each one a quiet doorway into freedom of the mind and a softer relationship with the heart. These stories are not meant to impress or overwhelm. They are simple, they are subtle, and yet they carry the power to transform the way you experience stress, the endless noise of thought, and the constant pressure to become more, do more, achieve more. For generations, these teachings were passed from teacher to student by those who understood something many have forgotten. True peace is not found by fixing the world around us, but by gently changing how we meet it from within. A Zen teacher once expressed it this way: when you fully arrive where you are, truth is already present. Nothing extra is required. Nothing is missing. As we move together through these quiet stories, you may notice a subtle shift beginning to unfold. The tight knot of worry may slowly loosen. The steady chatter of thought may begin to fade into the background. Without effort, you may find yourself sinking into a state of calm awareness and natural understanding. So now, allow yourself to settle even more deeply. Let your body soften into whatever supports you. There is nothing you need to hold. Take one slow, intentional breath with me. And as you exhale, allow the day to gently drift away. What you are about to receive is wisdom whispered across centuries, arriving now exactly when you are ready to hear it. Our first story speaks of the freedom discovered through embracing emptiness. Long ago, in a busy merchant quarter of Kyoto, there lived a cloth trader named Yamada. Though his business prospered, his mind never found rest. Each night, as the city grew quiet, his thoughts grew louder, circling endlessly around inventory, rivals, accounts, and plans that never seemed complete. Success did not bring him peace. It only multiplied his concerns. After yet another sleepless night, Yamada rose with heavy eyes and a heavier heart. He decided to seek counsel from Master Tenzin, a respected teacher who lived in a modest temple beyond the city's edge. The morning light filtered gently through tall pine trees as Yamada approached the small wooden hall. Each step felt slow, weighed down by the burden of constant thinking. Standing before the master, Yamada bowed deeply. "Teacher," he said quietly, "my thoughts give me no rest. My trade fills my nights with worry, profits, losses, obligations without end. How can I find peace when my life demands so much attention?" Master Tenzin listened without interruption, his expression calm and open. For a moment he said nothing at all. Then, rising slowly, he walked to a corner of the room where donated items were kept. He selected a piece of cloth and returned to Yamada, placing it gently before him. The fabric was old and worn, marked by many holes of different shapes and sizes. And the room grew very still. Some of the openings were so small they could be overlooked at first glance, while others were wide enough for light to pass freely through. What remained of the fabric was thin, faded, and fragile with age. Master Tenzin gently placed the cloth into Yamada's hands and spoke softly. "I have something for you to do," he said. "Take this to the marketplace and sell it." Yamada stared down at the fabric, disbelief rising in his chest. "But, Master," he replied, his voice uncertain, "this cloth has no value at all. It is torn and full of holes. No one would give even a single coin for something so damaged. How could I possibly sell this?" The master's face did not change. His calm presence filled the room. "That is precisely why," he said. "Go and sell the holes." Yamada blinked. The holes?" he repeated, certain he had misunderstood. "Yes," the master replied gently. "Do not sell the cloth. Sell the emptiness." Confused and unsettled, Yamada left the temple holding the worn fabric close to his chest. His mind spun with questions. How could emptiness be sold? What worth could absence ever hold? Yet his respect for the master was stronger than his doubt, and so he resolved to try. For 3 long days, Yamada wandered through the crowded marketplace. He approached shopkeepers, travelers, and passers-by, each time lifting the cloth and speaking with forced confidence. "Would you care to purchase some holes?" he asked. Laughter followed him. Merchants shook their heads in amusement. Customers turned away in confusion. Children pointed and whispered. Before long, word spread that the once respected cloth trader had lost his senses. By the 4th day, exhaustion weighed heavily on him. He sat beside a quiet fountain, staring at the fabric spread across his lap. As his eyes rested on the empty spaces, something within him loosened. Suddenly, he began to laugh. At first it was soft and hesitant, then it grew into deep waves of laughter that shook his entire body. People stopped to watch, wondering what had happened to the merchant. But Yamada no longer noticed them. Still laughing, he returned to Master Tenzin's temple. "Master," he said, his eyes clear and bright, "I understand now. All this time, I have been selling cloth shaped around emptiness. Every garment gains its purpose from the space it allows, not the threads alone." The master nodded. Long ago, the Buddha taught that form and emptiness are not separate. What appears solid arises together with space, and space gives form its meaning. This story reveals a quiet truth about our lives. We place so much attention on what we can touch, measure, and possess, while overlooking the open spaces that allow life to move and breathe. Zen teachings remind us how easily we cling to objects, to success, to identity, believing safety and happiness come from accumulation. We become fixated on the material, forgetting the emptiness that gives it use. A cup is valuable not because of its clay, but because of the space within it. A home is alive not because of its walls, but because of the open room where life unfolds. Even your breath depends on emptiness, the space within your lungs that welcomes air. Yet modern life urges us to fill every moment. Our calendars overflow. Our homes grow crowded. Our minds rarely rest. We overlook the silent pauses, the spaces between moments, the stillness between thoughts. True value often lives there. When we try to fill inner emptiness with possessions, noise, or endless activity, suffering quietly grows. But when emptiness is welcomed rather than feared, it becomes a place of rest. A Zen teacher once said that wisdom comes not from rejecting the world, but from seeing clearly beyond our habits of thought. Yamada could not see the value of the wholes until he stopped thinking in terms of ordinary gain. In meditation, we gently notice the gaps between breaths, the silence beneath sound, the space between one thought and the next. These are not absences to correct, but openings where awareness can settle naturally. Tonight, as you rest, you may begin to sense these spaces, the quiet holding the room, the stillness supporting your body, the openness that allows everything to exist without strain. Perhaps meaning does not come from what you have gathered, but from the spaciousness that allows life to unfold. The Buddha taught that when one candle lights another, no light is lost. In the same way, space can hold countless things without ever becoming full. And now, let us move gently into another story, one that explores perfection and imperfection. In a secluded monastery among rolling hills lived a monk named Bunai. For his entire life, he had devoted himself to copying sacred sutras. Day after day, year after year, he sat at his wooden desk, his posture upright, his brush steady as it glided across soft rice paper. The monks admired his discipline. Scholars praised his calligraphy. For 20 years, Bunai copied countless teachings with careful precision. Each character was balanced, each line exact. He believed his devotion preserved the Buddha's words for future generations. One quiet afternoon, while comparing his work to an ancient manuscript, his breath suddenly stopped. He saw it. For decades, in a crucial passage repeated again and again, he had written the character for doubt instead of faith. Scroll after scroll confirmed the same mistake. His hands trembled. Shame washed over him. How many students had read these words? How much harm had he caused? Terrified, Bunai went before his teacher, the elderly abbot Teshin. He bowed fully, pressing his forehead to the ground. "Master," he said through tears, "I have failed the Dharma. For 20 years I have copied the sutras incorrectly. I have spread error instead of truth." The abbot listened in silence. When Bunai finished, Teshin remained still, gently stroking his white beard. After a long pause, he asked a question that Bunai never expected. "Tell me," the abbot said softly, breaking the silence, "which version of the sutras do you believe has guided more people along the path?" Bunai slowly lifted his head, confusion clouding his face. "Master, I do not understand." The old teacher's voice remained calm and steady. "Consider this carefully," he said. "Those monks who studied your copies, the ones that contained doubt, how did they approach the teachings? And those who read the traditional versions filled with certainty, how did they respond?" Bunai closed his eyes and reflected. Gradually, a quiet realization began to form. The monks who studied his imperfect scrolls often returned to him with deep questions. They wrestled with the teachings. They challenged meanings. They lingered in discussion, probing beyond the surface, searching for understanding rather than comfort. Their practice was alive. Those who read the standard texts, filled with faith alone, often bowed, agreed, and moved on. They accepted the words as final, rarely questioning, rarely lingering. "I see," Bunai whispered, his voice trembling with insight. The abbot smiled gently. "Then continue copying the sutras exactly as you have been," he said. The Buddha's wisdom reminds us not to cling blindly, but to discover truth for ourselves. The heart of this lesson reveals something subtle and profound. What we call mistakes may serve a deeper unfolding than perfection ever could. Why do we cling so tightly to doing everything correctly? Zen teachings reveal that our hunger for perfection often arises from the ego, the need to appear competent, wise, and worthy. We fear mistakes because we believe they diminish our value or disturb some imagined order that depends upon flawless performance. Yet awakening does not bloom from control alone. Sometimes our greatest errors become our most generous teachers. Bunai's mistake offered something the flawless texts could not: curiosity, humility, and the courage to question. Reflect quietly on your own life. How often has an apparent failure opened a door you never expected? A path that ended only to reveal another. A loss that taught you compassion. A struggle that softened your heart. Painful moments often teach more deeply than success ever could. A Zen teacher once said that in the beginner's mind, there are endless possibilities, while the expert's mind grows narrow. Bunai's error preserved the beginner's mind in those who studied his work. By encountering doubt where certainty was expected, they were invited to think, to feel, to awaken for themselves. This story gently challenges our ideas about authority and correctness. How often do we assume official versions, approved paths, or established voices must be superior? Zen reminds us that truth sometimes arrives through what is unofficial, accidental, or imperfect. In practice, we learn to hold our understanding lightly, not abandoning wisdom, but remaining open. This openness is sometimes called the don't know mind, a humble recognition that reality is always larger than our concepts. Tonight, as you rest, consider your own imperfections. What if they are quietly serving purposes you cannot yet see? What if what you call a flaw has allowed others to feel safe around you? What if a failure taught you kindness that success never would? The Buddha once taught that there are only two mistakes on the path to truth: not beginning and not continuing. Sometimes our imperfect efforts move truth forward more gently than our perfect attempts to avoid error. And now, let us turn toward another story, one that reveals the quiet power of simplicity and honesty. High in the mountains north of a small village, there lived a sake brewer named Ichiro. His family's brewery had existed for generations, and he honored the traditional methods passed down from his grandfather. Once, his rice wine was praised throughout the region, but the years grew harsh. Harvests failed. Large breweries took over the market, and Ichiro's devotion to perfection left little room for profit. Debt accumulated, to suppliers, to officials, to neighbors, even to his own workers. Each obligation weighed heavily in his chest. One winter night, snow falling silently outside, Ichiro sat alone among empty vats. His reputation felt ruined. His family's legacy seemed lost. No path forward revealed itself. For a moment, he wondered whether his disappearance might at least ease the burden he had caused. As dawn crept through frost-covered windows, Ichiro wandered his empty brewery like a shadow of his former life. In his despair, an unexpected impulse arose. He began filling the large ceramic vats with clear mountain water drawn from his well, the same pure water he had always used for brewing, but now without rice, without fermentation, without effort. Just water. When the vats were full, he painted simple wooden signs and hung them outside. Nothing sake, they read. No intoxication. No regret. No illusion. Pure mountain water, offered honestly. At first, visitors came only out of curiosity. Villagers whispered about Ichiro's troubles and wondered what desperation had driven him to this strange offering. A few elders stopped, remembering his family's name. They drank, and they stayed. Some said the water felt clearer than any drink they had known. Others claimed it brought calm to the mind. Soon people returned, bringing their own cups. A traveling monk drank deeply and said, "At last, a sake that reveals instead of conceals." Mothers brought their children. Merchants met there to speak clearly. Travelers spread the story beyond the village. People claimed relief from headaches, better sleep, lighter hearts. Ichiro listened quietly, never arguing with their experience. Within a year, voluntary gifts from grateful visitors erased his debts and brought a quiet prosperity greater than before. The brewery became a place of clarity, honesty, and simple presence. When asked the secret of his success, Ichiro would smile and say, "I stopped offering what people expected and began offering what was true." The Buddha taught that truth is the highest virtue. This ancient lesson reveals the gentle strength of radical honesty, even when it exposes our emptiness. Why do we exhaust ourselves trying to meet expectations instead of offering our authentic reality? Zen teachings point to layers of conditioning that bind us, and the first of these is fear. Fear of rejection. And this is where our next reflection quietly begins. At the root of this struggle lies a quiet belief that who we truly are is somehow not enough, not worthy of being received as we are. Alongside this grows an attachment to success as the world defines it, an attachment that blinds us to other forms of meaning and contribution. Even deeper still lives what Zen calls the comparing mind, the habit of endlessly measuring ourselves against others, against our past, or against imagined standards of what we believe we should be. This comparing mind whispers that we must improve ourselves, add something more, or present a refined version of reality in order to matter. Yet Ichiro's story offers another path. When he stopped trying to be a successful brewer and simply became an honest human being offering clear water, something quietly shifted. The power did not come from the product itself, but from sincerity. People were not drawn to his skill, but to his openness. Not to expertise, but to truthfulness. Pause gently for a moment and consider your own life. How much energy is spent trying to appear more capable, more confident, or more complete than you truly feel? How often do you present a carefully edited version of yourself, showing strength while concealing doubt? This performance is exhausting, and without noticing, it builds a subtle wall between you and others. A Zen teacher once said that there is nothing you need to do except allow your original nature to shine. Our true nature does not require improvement. It requires permission. Like Ichiro's pure mountain water, our unadorned humanity, offered without pretense, often nourishes others more deeply than our most polished efforts. The nothing sake held power because it promised nothing false. There were no hidden effects, no exaggerated claims, no disappointments waiting beneath the surface. In a world full of substances that distort perception, simple clarity became rare and precious. This teaching extends into every corner of life. In relationships, vulnerability often creates deeper connection than performance. In work, admitting what we do not know can open doors that false certainty keeps closed. A Zen master once taught, "There is nothing special to accomplish. Just live plainly. Wash your face. Eat your meal. When tired, rest." In this ordinariness, freely offered, there is quiet wonder. Tonight, as you settle more deeply into rest, notice where you might be trying to add something to yourself in order to feel acceptable. What if your honesty about limitation became your greatest strength? What if offering exactly what you have, nothing more, nothing less, was already enough? The Buddha taught that certain things cannot remain hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the truth. When Ichiro offered simplicity without disguise, its light revealed itself naturally. And now, let us drift into another story, one that speaks of completion discovered through incompletion. In a monastery known for its artistic lineage lived a monk named Sichu, a painter who devoted many years to mastering the art of the Zen circle. This practice, known as Enso, sought to express awakening in a single, continuous brushstroke, a task both simple and endlessly subtle. Sichu trained under respected teachers, practicing day after day with ink and paper. His landscapes were admired, his portraits captured the spirit beneath appearances. Yet the perfect circle remained just beyond reach, always close, yet never fully satisfying to his careful eye. For many months, Sichu prepared to present his circle to his teacher, Master Takusan. He ground his ink by hand, prepared fine paper, and selected brushes made by skilled artisans. Before dawn each morning, he practiced circular movements in the air, training his body to move as one with intention. When the appointed day arrived, autumn light filled the monastery hall. Sichu arranged his materials with reverence, placing the blank paper before him as one might prepare an altar. Master Takusan sat nearby, silent and attentive. Sichu knelt, his breath steady, his mind focused. He dipped his brush into the dark ink, feeling its weight and texture. Years of discipline led to this moment. As he lifted the brush, his awareness filled with technique, pressure, speed, balance, perfection. But as the brush hovered above the paper, something unexpected occurred. He could not move. Time passed quietly. The ink began to dry. He prepared the brush again, lifted it again, and again found himself unable to begin. For hours, he remained still, suspended in the space before creation. Master Takusan observed without interruption as effort softened into confusion, confusion into surrender, and surrender into peace. At last, Sichu gently lowered the brush. He rolled up the untouched paper and offered it to his teacher. "This appears unfinished," the master said calmly. "No, master," Sichu replied, his voice steady. "This is the circle before it became imperfect." Understanding shone in the master's eyes. He hung the blank scroll in the meditation hall, where it remained for many years, silently teaching generations of students. Ancient Zen wisdom tells us that the perfect path avoids grasping and rejection. The deeper lesson here reveals how our pursuit of completion often blinds us to the completeness that already exists. We are conditioned to believe value arises only through action, through creation, through leaving a mark. But before the brush touches the page, every possibility is present. Nothing has been lost. Nothing has been excluded. How often do we rush to fill silence, to occupy empty moments, to resolve what feels unfinished? We mistake emptiness for lack, not realizing it holds infinite potential. Sichu saw that the unmarked paper contained every possible circle, while any single stroke would erase countless others. And as you rest now, drifting gently towards sleep, you may sense this truth within yourself, that nothing needs to be added, nothing needs to be completed, and that in this quiet openness, everything is already whole. This teaching gently questions a world obsessed with productivity, a world that measures worth almost entirely through results, output, and visible achievement. We crowd our days with tasks, our conversations with noise, and our inner world with endless thinking, rarely pausing to sense the fertile stillness from which all expression quietly arises. A great Zen teacher once said that to walk the Buddha path is to study the self, and to study the self is to gradually forget the self. Sichu forgot his desire to create something remarkable and instead rested in the source of creativity itself. In that deep intimacy, he discovered that the source requires no refinement, no display, no proof of value. The empty scroll hanging in the meditation hall became a silent teacher. Students would sit before it and, over time, realize that their own awakened nature was like that untouched paper, already whole, already complete, with nothing needing to be added. The meditation itself was the circle, not any image that appeared within it, not any experience achieved. This does not suggest a life without action or creation. Rather, it points to a different relationship with action, one that recognizes wholeness before, during, and after every effort. When this is understood, our actions arise from fullness instead of striving. Doing becomes expression, not compensation. In traditional Japanese aesthetics, this wisdom appears as an appreciation for suggestion rather than declaration. Gardens leave space for imagination. Paintings invite silence. Poems capture moments even as they dissolve. Beauty is found not in completion, but in openness. A Zen teacher once remarked, "You are perfect exactly as you are, and there is room to grow." This gentle paradox reflects Sichu's realization. We are complete like the blank paper, and any growth that occurs is simply another way that completeness expresses itself. Tonight, as you notice your impulse to fill quiet moments, to finish every task before allowing yourself to rest, can you pause and feel the quiet perfection of what is unfinished? Perhaps there is something in your life that does not need resolution. Perhaps there is a question that does not require an answer right now. The Buddha taught that peace arises from within, not from endless seeking. Sichu's unpainted circle reminds us that the peace we chase through accomplishment already exists in the stillness before we begin. And now, let us move gently into another story, one that explores acceptance in the face of what cannot be controlled. High in the mountains, where clouds gathered and drifted away according to rhythms unseen, lived a hermit named Dokai. Among the villagers below, he was known for his remarkable ability to sense changes in the weather. Through years of careful observation and quiet attunement to nature, he had learned to read the subtle language of wind, sky, and earth. Farmers climbed the steep paths to consult him before planting. Fishermen sought his guidance before long journeys. Festival planners asked his counsel when the skies mattered most. Dokai never claimed special powers. He would only smile and say that the mountain was always speaking. He had simply learned to listen. One summer, the valley below suffered a long and devastating drought. Fields cracked, wells dried, and hunger spread quietly from house to house. A farmer named Kenji climbed the mountain with his young son, both weakened by scarcity. Falling to the ground before Dokai's simple shelter, Kenji pleaded, "Our land is dying. The rice will not grow. Our children are hungry. Please, pray for rain. Surely your closeness to the mountain gives you influence with the sky." Dokai felt deep compassion. Though he had never attempted to change the weather, the suffering before him touched his heart. He agreed to sit in meditation through the night and ask the heavens for rain. As the sun set, Dokai seated himself on a stone overlooking the valley. He entered deep stillness, opening his awareness to the vast sky, holding sincere wishes for relief. At dawn, thunder rolled across the mountains. Clouds gathered swiftly and rain began to fall, first gently, then with increasing force. Dokai smiled with relief, believing the village would be saved. But the rain did not stop. For 7 days and nights, it poured without pause. Fields flooded. Homes collapsed. Animals were lost. The drought ended, but disaster followed in its place. When the rain finally ceased, grieving villagers climbed the mountain in anger. Kenji stood before Dokai, his face heavy with loss. His child had been taken by the flood. "You said you would pray for rain," he cried. "I asked for rain to save us, not destruction." Dokai met his gaze with sorrow and honesty. "I asked for rain as well," he said quietly. "It seems the sky did not belong to either of us." The Buddha taught that while we have influence over our minds, we do not command the world beyond them. Strength comes from understanding this difference. Here, we see the space between influence and control. Dokai's sensitivity allowed him to sense patterns, not command them. Yet both the villagers and Dokai himself momentarily forgot this truth. This misunderstanding appears often in our lives. We develop skills and begin to expect mastery over outcomes. We care for our bodies and feel betrayed by illness. We plan carefully and feel anger when circumstances shift. We meditate and expect calm, then judge ourselves when difficulty arises. Zen wisdom reminds us that all things arise through countless interwoven causes. No single person commands the whole. Dokai did not defend himself. He did not explain the flood as destiny or accept blame for what no human could control. He simply spoke the truth, that what occurred belonged to forces larger than intention. This teaching invites us to hold our wishes gently. We may act with care, offer sincere effort, and align ourselves with wholesome intentions, while releasing the demand for specific results. Zen practice cultivates this balance, full engagement without attachment. We plant seeds without insisting on how they grow. We love without controlling outcomes. We work with meaning without requiring recognition. Tonight, as you rest, consider where you may be gripping too tightly. Is there something you are trying to control that asks instead for acceptance? Can you loosen your hold while keeping your heart open? Perhaps peace arrives not when life bends to our will, but when we learn to move with what is already unfolding. And as this understanding settles gently within you, there is nothing more you need to do. Nowhere else you need to go, only rest and allow the night to carry you onward. Perhaps there is a result you have been pressing for rather than gently allowing. As the Buddha reminded us, anger is never dissolved by anger, but only by kindness. This law does not change with time. When life answers our hopes with storms instead of soft rain, we are offered a choice. We may meet what arises with resistance and resentment, or we may respond with understanding, patience, and quiet acceptance. When we loosen our grip on how things must unfold, we begin to sense a deeper strength. Not the strength of force, but the steadiness that comes from moving in harmony with the way things already are. As our journey through Zen wisdom continues, let us now rest with a story that points toward the most basic truth of all. A truth so close, so constant, that it often escapes our notice. This is the story of the fish and the water. Far beneath the surface of a vast ocean, where sunlight softened into shades of blue and green, and coral forests swayed. With the slow breathing of the sea, a young fish drifted restlessly through familiar currents. All around, life moved in quiet beauty, schools of fish flowing together like living silver, sea plants rising and falling in gentle rhythm, the distant pulse of waves echoing from far above. Yet within the young fish, a question stirred, refusing to settle. One day, the fish approached an old sea turtle, whose shell carried the marks of long journeys and many seasons. With sincere curiosity, the fish asked, "Wise one, I hear others speak of something called the ocean. They speak as though it is the most important thing of all. But I have searched everywhere and I cannot find it. What is this ocean they talk about?" The turtle's eyes, calm and deep like still pools after a storm, rested on the young fish with quiet warmth. "Little one," the turtle said softly, "the ocean is what holds you at every moment." The fish swam in quick circles, looking in all directions, upward toward the distant light, downward toward the sandy floor, side to side through reeds and coral. "I don't see anything holding me," the fish replied. "There is only water, plants, stones, and other fish. Where is this ocean? Why can't I see it?" The turtle settled onto a bed of flowing kelp, understanding that some truths reveal themselves slowly. "You cannot see it," the turtle explained, "because it is not separate from you. You were born within it. You move through it. You are sustained by it. And one day, you will dissolve back into it. The ocean passes through your gills and surrounds your body as naturally as your scales cover your skin. It is so completely a part of you that it no longer appears as something distinct." The young fish became very still, a quiet realization beginning to form. "You mean this water?" the fish asked gently. "This is the ocean?" "Yes," said the turtle. "You have never been apart from it, not for a single moment." As the Buddha taught, all conditioned things are constantly changing. To live wisely is to meet this truth with awareness. This ancient story points to something essential about our own lives. Like the fish who cannot perceive the ocean, we exist within a vast, living reality that we rarely recognize. Not because it is hidden, but because it is too close, too familiar, too constant. Why do we fail to notice this underlying flow of existence? Zen teaching suggests that we are always searching for what seems extraordinary while overlooking what is simple and present. We imagine awakening must arrive through dramatic visions or distant revelations. We search for sacred moments while missing the quiet holiness of breath, the warmth of a cup held in the hands, the awareness that notices thoughts as they come and go. This fundamental flow expresses itself in all things, in the turning of seasons, in the rhythm of sleep and waking, in the steady pulse of the heart, in the way thoughts arise, linger briefly, and fade. It shapes galaxies and unfolds leaves. One pattern, appearing at every scale of life. Notice how often, even in your own day, this unseen order reveals itself. Traffic moving without a single guiding mind. Conversations finding their own pace. Your body breathing without instruction. Insights arriving when effort softens. These are not accidents. They are expressions of the same quiet intelligence moving through what appears, on the surface, to be disorder. A Zen teacher once observed that trying to define the self is like attempting to see one's own eyes without a mirror. This underlying way cannot be grasped because we are not standing outside it. We are movements within it. Every attempt to capture it with thought is like the fish trying to escape the water in order to examine it. Yet this does not make it abstract or unreal. It is the intelligence coordinating every cell in your body. The awareness in which every sensation appears. The life energy animating forests, rivers, insects, and stars. In ancient Chinese wisdom, this flow is called the way, not a path leading somewhere else, but the path that unfolds itself through each moment. It does not require our control. It does not ask for management. It simply moves. And though the sages remind us that the way cannot be fully spoken, words are sometimes used not to define it, but to gently point toward it. Like a finger indicating the moon, the words are not the truth themselves, only an invitation to look quietly and rest within what has always been holding you. Tonight, as you notice the breath entering and leaving your body without effort, without instruction, can you feel this quiet intelligence moving through you? Without your command, the lungs expand. Without your planning, the heart continues its steady rhythm. Can you sense in this simple, ordinary miracle the same unseen wisdom that guides the stars and turns the seasons? The Buddha taught, "Look within. You yourself are the awakened one. You are no more separate from the vast flow of existence than a wave is separate from the ocean." When this truth is gently recognized, the search begins to soften. We stop trying to grasp the way and begin to live as its quiet expression. Now, let us continue with a story that reveals the transforming power of fearlessness and unconditional compassion. This is the story of the thief and the Zen master. One evening, as dusk spread soft shades of violet and gold across the sky, Zen Master Shikiri Kojin sat alone in his modest dwelling. A single candle illuminated the room, its flames swaying gently as he recited ancient sutras. His voice moved slowly through the space, each word carried on calm breath, each pause resting in silence. The room felt settled, complete, undisturbed. Then, without warning, the stillness shattered. The door flew open with a loud crash, and a man burst inside, gripping a sharp sword that caught the candlelight. His clothes were worn and dirty, his chest heaving with hurried breath, his eyes clouded with fear and desperation. He had chosen this house believing it would be easy. An old monk would offer no resistance. "Your money or your life," the man demanded, his voice shaking despite his attempt at menace. He expected panic. He expected pleading. He expected fear. But Shikiri did not look up. He continued reciting for a few moments more, his voice unbroken, then paused as if addressing a small inconvenience. "Please," he said calmly, "do not interrupt my practice. If you need money, you may take it. It is in the drawer over there." He gestured toward a simple wooden chest and returned immediately to his chanting, as though nothing unusual had occurred. The thief stood frozen, sword raised, mind empty. Never in his life had he met such a response. No resistance, no anger, no fear, only quiet cooperation. Still confused, he moved to the drawer and gathered the few coins and belongings he found there. Behind him, the steady rhythm of sutra recitation continued, filling the room with calm. As the thief turned to leave, the master spoke again. "Wait," Shikiri said gently, looking up for the first time. "Please do not take all of it. I need some of that money to pay my taxes tomorrow. Leave a little for me." The thief stared in disbelief. A man calmly negotiating his own robbery. Almost without thinking, he returned some of the money to the drawer. As he reached the door, believing the encounter finally complete, the master's voice stopped him once more. "You took my money," Shikiri said softly, "but you did not thank me. That is not very polite, is it?" The thief's hand trembled. His grip on the sword weakened. Never had violence unsettled him like this. Here was someone who treated theft as generosity, who valued courtesy more than safety. "Thank you," the thief whispered and fled into the night. Later, when the man was captured and confessed to many crimes, the incident at Shikiri's home was included. The master was summoned to testify. The officials expected fear, anger, demands for punishment. Instead, Shikiri spoke calmly. "This man did not steal from me," he said. "I gave him the money freely. He even thanked me after a reminder." As these words were spoken, something opened inside the man standing in chains. For the first time in many years, tears filled his eyes. Not tears of regret or shame, but tears of recognition. He had encountered something unknown to him, love without conditions. After his release, the former thief sought out the master and asked to become his student. Under patient guidance, he learned to cultivate the same fearless compassion he had witnessed that night. Years passed. Through steady practice and unwavering trust, he came to know deep peace and awakening. As the Buddha taught, hatred does not end through hatred, but only through love. This law never changes. This story reveals a quiet revolution, meeting violence with peace, responding to taking with giving, answering fear with love. Why do we so often believe that force must be answered with force? That aggression demands defense? Zen wisdom shows that while such reactions are natural, they often deepen the very suffering they seek to stop. When hostility meets hostility, the cycle tightens. But when compassion appears, not as weakness, but as courageous clarity, space opens for true transformation. Consider your own experience. When someone approaches you with anger or demand, what arises first within you? Notice how the body tightens, how the breath shortens, how the mind prepares to defend. Does this response bring peace or more tension? Shikiri's action reflects what Zen calls skillful means, responding from understanding rather than reflex. His fearlessness was not ignorance of danger, but insight into its source. He saw that aggression is born from suffering, not from evil. By refusing to see an enemy, he allowed another human being to see himself anew. In Zen practice, this is known as the courage of defenselessness. And as you rest here tonight, breathing softly, held by the same unseen flow, you may sense that this courage already lives quietly within you, waiting, patient, awake. This does not mean closing our eyes to real danger or allowing harm to come to us without wisdom. Rather, it points toward a deeper strength, the ability to respond from clarity instead of reflex, from understanding instead of fear. The Buddha taught, in the end, only three things truly matter: how deeply we have lived, how sincerely we have loved, and how completely we have learned to let go. The Master embodied all three. He lived fully present in the moment. He loved without conditions. And he released attachment to possessions, to outcome, even to his own safety. Now, gently consider the people in your life who test your patience. The difficult coworker, the critical voice in your family, the stranger whose anger brushes against you unexpectedly. What would it mean to meet them with the same calm courage? Not by agreeing with harmful behavior, not by surrendering your boundaries, but by refusing to descend into reaction. To remain anchored in your own still center, regardless of the storm around you. Tonight, as moments of tension arise in memory or imagination, can you recall the image of a master who welcomed a thief without fear? Can you feel the quiet space between what happens and how you choose to respond? This is where freedom lives. As the Buddha reminded us, better than 1,000 empty words is one word that brings peace. Sometimes the most powerful response is not resistance, but an unshakable commitment to compassion. A trust that love transforms where force never can. Now, let us continue our journey with a story about contentment and the restless nature of desire. This is the journey of the stone cutter. High among the mountain villages, there lived a simple stone cutter who unknowingly possessed the secret of happiness. Each morning, before the sun fully rose, he walked the winding paths to the quarry, his tools resting lightly on his shoulders. As he worked, his voice carried old mountain songs across valleys and pine-covered slopes. By the measures of society, he was poor. His home was small. His belongings were few. Yet his heart felt complete. The rhythm of his labor, the cool stone beneath his hands, the vast sky above him, these were enough. One day, he was summoned to work on the estate of a wealthy nobleman. As he approached the mansion, his breath caught in his chest. Towering columns gleamed in the sunlight. Gardens unfolded in perfect order. For the first time, a sharp longing pierced his contentment. "If only I were rich," he murmured. "Then I would not need to toil as I do." A quiet voice rose from the stones. "Your wish is granted." That evening, his modest hut had become a grand mansion. For a time, he delighted in luxury. But one hot afternoon, watching the king pass by in shaded splendor, a new desire arose. "If only I were king." And so he became one. Yet even the king could not escape the sun. Heat pressed through silk and stone alike. "I wish I were the sun," he declared. Now blazing across the sky, he felt invincible until thick clouds gathered, blocking his light. "I wish to be a cloud." He became a great storm until rain met an immovable mountain rock. "A rock is stronger than all," he thought. But soon he felt chipping at his base. Looking down, he saw a small figure cutting stone with steady patience. "I wish to be a man again." And so he returned to being a stone cutter, standing once more on familiar paths. But something had changed. As he lifted his tools and felt the mountain breeze on his skin, a deep contentment filled his chest. His song returned, richer, softer, wiser. The Buddha said, "Contentment is the greatest wealth." The stone cutter learned that happiness does not arise from becoming something else, but from seeing clearly what has always been enough. We chase new conditions, believing fulfillment waits ahead. Yet each wish fulfilled reveals another desire. Zen teaches us a quiet paradox. We are already complete and still gently growing. Contentment does not end life's movement. It changes our relationship to it. Tonight, as your thoughts reach toward what is not here, can you rest in what is? Can you hear the song that emerges when striving softens and acceptance breathes? The Buddha taught, natural contentment is true wealth. And now, let us move onward to one final teaching, a story about patience and the paradox of urgent seeking. This is the teaching of the one-eyed student. In a peaceful valley, where cherry blossoms drifted softly in spring, a young seeker heard tales of a great Zen master. Driven by longing for awakening, he traveled many days until he reached the monastery. When he finally stood before the master, his eyes burned with determination. "Master," he said, bowing deeply, "if I devote myself completely, if I practice harder than anyone before me, how long will it take to attain Zen?" The master studied him quietly, then answered, 10 years. The young student's eyes widened in disbelief. 10 years felt impossibly long when awakening seemed so urgent, so necessary for relief from suffering. Surely, he thought, with the right intensity, this journey could be shortened. "Master," he said, leaning forward, his voice tight with determination. "What if I work much harder than the others? What if I meditate longer, study more scriptures, push myself with unwavering discipline? How long would it take then?" The master reflected quietly, then answered with the same calm certainty, 20 years. Confusion rippled across the student's face. His frustration deepened. Summoning even greater resolve, he insisted, "Perhaps you still do not understand how serious I am. What if I devote every waking moment to practice? What if I sleep only when necessary and push myself beyond all limits? Surely then realization would come sooner. Without hesitation, the master replied, 30 years. The student stood stunned, his certainty collapsing into agitation. Nothing aligned with his understanding of progress. In every other discipline he knew, music, scholarship, physical training, greater effort yielded faster results. Why should the spiritual path be different? Master, he said at last, his voice edged with disappointment, each time I promise more effort, you say the path becomes longer. This feels backwards. Why is this so? The master's gaze softened, as one speaks gently to a beloved child ready to hear the truth. When one eye is fixed on the destination, he said quietly, only one eye remains for the path. Ancient wisdom tells us that even the longest journey unfolds one step at a time. What this story reveals is a deep teaching about the paradox of spiritual progress. Why does urgency slow awakening? Zen teaches that excessive striving creates subtle obstacles. First is divided awareness. When part of the mind is busy measuring progress, it cannot fully rest in the present moment, the only place realization can arise. Consider learning an instrument. If attention is consumed by imagining applause, it is no longer available for listening to tone, rhythm, and touch. Skill emerges through intimacy with the moment, not anxiety about the future. Second is what Zen calls the gaining mind, the quiet grasping that turns practice into a transaction. Meditation becomes a means to an end. Wisdom becomes something to collect. This creates a painful split between who we are and who we think we must become. The Buddha said, "What you seek is found where you stand." Zen is not something acquired. It is something recognized. It is not a destination, but the awareness with which the path unfolds. Urgent seeking assumes that the present moment is lacking. Yet Zen reveals that the seeking mind itself arises within the very awareness it longs to find. Reflect on your own life. Haven't your clearest insights often appeared when you were not searching for them? While walking quietly, washing dishes, or resting without intention. Zen Master Huangbo taught, "Your ordinary mind, this is the way." The student's misunderstanding was not his longing, but his belief that awakening lived elsewhere. Each time he tried harder, he stepped further from simplicity, like chasing a shadow that retreats the faster you run. Zen practice invites a different posture, just sitting. No agenda, no gaining, no divided attention. This is not passivity. It is wholehearted presence. Consider how this teaching echoes through life. In relationships, forcing closeness often creates distance. In creativity, strain blocks inspiration, while ease allows flow. Tonight, as your thoughts race ahead, toward who you hope to become, toward peace you want to secure, can you return both eyes to this moment? Can you feel the path beneath you and realize it contains everything you believed waited at the end? The Buddha said, "There is no path to peace. Peace is the path." With this understanding, let us move onward to a final story, one about choice, responsibility, and the quiet power held in every moment. This is the tale of the young man and the bird. A clever student, weary of his teacher's calm replies, began to suspect that the old master spoke in riddles to appear wise. Determined to expose him, the student devised a test. One morning, he caught a small sparrow in the garden. Its fragile heart fluttered rapidly within his cupped hands. Hiding the bird behind his back, he approached the teacher, who sat peacefully in the morning light, reading ancient texts. "Master," the student called out, his voice trembling with barely hidden excitement, "I have a question that will truly test your wisdom." The old teacher lifted his gaze from the pages before him. His eyes were calm, spacious, and kind. Over many years, he had seen this expression countless times. The spark of cleverness mixed with the hunger to challenge, a natural stage on the path of learning. "Please," the teacher replied gently, "ask what you wish to ask." The student stepped closer, keeping his hands carefully hidden behind his back. "Master," he said, "I hold a small bird in my hands. With all your insight, tell me, is this bird alive or dead?" Inside, the young man felt triumphant. He believed he had created a perfect trap. If the master answered alive, the student would quietly crush the bird and reveal a lifeless body. If the master answered dead, he would open his palms and allow the bird to fly free. Either way, he was certain he would expose the teacher's wisdom as mere guessing dressed in poetic words. He waited eagerly, anticipating the moment of victory. The teacher did not rush to answer. He made no effort to see behind the student's back. Instead, he sat in silence, his gaze resting softly, as if looking beyond the student into something deeper and unseen. At last, with a quiet smile filled with warmth and clarity, the master spoke. "My young friend," he said calmly, "the answer is already in your hands." The student froze. His mouth parted slightly in shock. In that single sentence, his entire scheme dissolved. The master had not chosen between life or death. He had stepped beyond the false choice altogether, pointing instead to the truth beneath it. The truth that the outcome was never the teacher's to decide. Slowly, awareness dawned. The student felt the bird's small heart fluttering rapidly against his palms. He understood, not with intellect, but with sudden clarity, that the bird's fate had always rested with him. Not with wisdom spoken by another, not with clever questions, but with his own intention. And more than that, he sensed this truth extended far beyond this moment. Every day, in every situation, he held similar power. The power to choose care or harm, presence or neglect, kindness or cruelty. With trembling hands, the young man stepped forward and slowly opened his palms. The bird remained still for a breath, then lifted itself into the air, its wings catching the sunlight as it vanished into the trees. The Buddha taught, all that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we shape the world. This ancient insight reveals the quiet responsibility carried by every choice, and the truth that we are always participants in creating our experience. Why do we so often look outward for answers that only awareness can reveal? Zen points to our habit of seeking authority outside ourselves, teachers, rules, beliefs, hoping they will relieve us of the weight of choice. Yet true wisdom cannot be handed down. It must be discovered through direct engagement with life. The student believed he was testing the teacher. In truth, he was being shown his own power. His question was never about insight. It was about responsibility. Every moment offers such a question. In our work, our relationships, our inner lives, we hold something delicate in our hands. Truth, integrity, opportunity, another human heart. The result does not depend on circumstances alone, but on how we respond. The Master's teaching reveals the nature of authentic guidance. A true teacher does not provide answers. They return us to our own capacity to see. Zen teacher Joko Beck once said, "We are always choosing even when we believe we are not." The bird in the student's hands represents all those moments when we tell ourselves we have no options. But awareness always includes choice. And choice always carries responsibility. Tonight, as you rest with your breath, consider a challenge in your own life. Where have you been waiting for permission, direction, or certainty from outside? What might change if you gently recognize that the next response already rests in your hands? The Buddha taught, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." Each thought, each intention, each quiet decision is like that small bird, an invitation to create life or harm, peace or suffering, clarity or confusion. And in this knowing, the path unfolds softly, one mindful choice at a time. The answer has never been far away. It has always rested quietly within our own hands. Tonight, as you reflect on the moments in your life when you feel uncertain, when you search outward for guidance or reassurance, can you gently sense what the Master was revealing? Not as pressure, not as obligation, but as the quiet dignity of being awake and alive. Each day you carry choices, not as heavy burdens, but as the sacred privilege of conscious existence. The Buddha reminded us, no one can walk the path for us. We must walk it ourselves. The bird did not fly free because of the teacher's clever reply. It flew free because of the student's decision. And so it is with us. When we recognize our capacity to choose care over harm, honesty over illusion, presence over avoidance, we begin to see that the answers we seek have always been gently waiting in our own hands. Now, let us move softly into another story, one that explores the difference between borrowed understanding and wisdom lived through experience. This is the story of following the stream. Deep within a vast wilderness, where tall pines reached endlessly toward the sky, two people from the city found themselves utterly lost. They had set out believing it would be a simple walk, a brief escape from familiar routines. But confidence without preparation had led them far beyond known paths. For an entire day and night they wandered, their unease growing with every passing hour. The orderly world they knew felt distant and unreal. Every direction looked the same. Every turn led to deeper confusion. Just as fear began to take hold, they came upon an old hermit sitting quietly near a small clearing. His face was weathered by time, yet his presence carried a deep, steady calm that soothed their racing minds. "How do we return?" they asked urgently, their voices thin with exhaustion. The hermit regarded them gently, as though he saw not only their situation but the habits that had led them there. "I could tell you," he said softly, "but you would still become lost." They looked at one another, puzzled. This was not the clear instruction they had hoped for. "What should we do then?" they asked. The hermit smiled and replied, "Go with the flow." One of them frowned slightly. "Go with the flow?" He repeated, expecting something more precise. The hermit gestured toward a narrow stream winding its way through the clearing. "Follow the water," he said. "Streams become creeks. Creeks become rivers. Rivers pass through towns. As you walk, you will have water to drink and nourishment along the way." The advice made practical sense. Water always leads toward life. Yet one of the travelers paused, his mind reaching beyond the surface. "Is that what Zen means," he asked, "when it speaks of going with the flow?" The hermit considered this for a moment, then replied, "Yes and no." And with that, he returned to his solitude, leaving the travelers to discover their own understanding. The Buddha once taught, "If you understand, things are as they are. If you do not understand, things are still as they are." This teaching reveals the layered nature of wisdom. The hermit's guidance worked on two levels at once. On the surface, it was sound advice for survival. On a deeper level, it reflected an entire way of meeting life. Why did the hermit say they would remain lost even with directions? Because information alone does not cultivate wisdom. Directions can guide the body, but only awareness teaches the heart how to navigate. We often approach teachings wanting exact answers, exact steps, exact solutions. But true guidance does not hand us a map. It teaches us how to read the land beneath our feet. Like the stream that naturally finds its way to the sea, there is an inner intelligence within each of us. When we learn to listen, it knows where to go. Go with the flow does not mean drifting without care. It means aligning ourselves with the deeper current of reality. The stream represents the natural way, the unfolding order beneath all things. When we move with this current, effort softens. Resistance fades. Action becomes simple and clear. But this kind of knowing does not come from calculation. It arises from presence. The rational mind wants certainty in advance. The deeper mind listens moment by moment. The stream does not plan its destination. It simply responds to the shape of the land. And so, through mindfulness, we sense what is needed now, without needing to solve the whole journey at once. Tonight, as you rest with your breath, can you feel the quiet streams moving beneath your daily concerns? What might change if you trusted that deeper current while still caring gently for practical life? The Buddha taught, one candle can light 1,000 others without losing its flame. The hermit did not give answers. He lit a light, one that could guide them far beyond that forest. And now we turn toward another story, one about fearlessness and the strength found in accepting what cannot be changed. This is the meeting between a powerful general and a Zen master who could not be moved. During a time of violent war, armies swept across the land, leaving fear in their wake. Villages emptied. People fled with whatever they could carry, seeking safety wherever it could be found. And so the story continues, unfolding gently as the night deepens and the mind grows quiet. In a quiet village tucked between low hills, as the distant thunder of marching soldiers grew closer, the familiar pattern unfolded once again. Doors were barred in haste. Bundles were tied with trembling hands. Shops that had echoed with voices only hours before fell into silence. By nightfall, the streets stood empty, as though life itself had quietly withdrawn. Everyone had fled. Everyone, except an old Zen monk who lived in a modest temple at the heart of the village. When the army arrived and found the settlement deserted, the general noticed something unexpected. A thin ribbon of smoke rose gently from the temple's chimney. Curiosity stirred within him. Who would remain when fear had driven all others away? Accompanied by several officers, the general approached the temple, expecting to find either weakness or foolishness. Instead, he found the monk kneeling calmly in the garden, tending to small plants as if the world beyond the walls had not changed at all. The general was accustomed to fear. Wherever he went, people bowed, pleaded, surrendered. Power announced itself through trembling voices and lowered eyes. But this man did not look up in alarm. He did not rush or freeze. He simply continued his work, hands steady, breath slow. The general felt irritation rise. This quiet presence did not acknowledge his authority. His voice cut through the still air. "You old fool," he shouted, hand moving toward his sword. "Do you not know who stands before you? I am a man who can end your life without a moment's hesitation." The monk did not flinch. He placed his tools aside with care and looked up gently. "And do you know," he replied calmly, "that you stand before a man who can lose his life without a moment's fear?" The courtyard fell silent. The general's hand paused. His anger dissolved into something unfamiliar. In all his years of conquest, he had seen courage born of desperation, rage fueled by defeat, and recklessness driven by pride. But this was different. This was acceptance. A stillness so complete that death itself had no leverage. Slowly, the general returned his sword to its sheath. Without another word, he turned away and left. The village was spared, not through strategy or negotiation, but through one person's freedom from fear. The Buddha taught, all conditioned things pass away. Awaken with diligence. Fear dissolves when we stop clinging to what must change. The monk could not be threatened because he had already let go. True strength does not come from the power to destroy, but from the absence of fear of being destroyed. Tonight, as you notice the pressures that visit your own life, can you sense how much fear comes from attachment? What would remain if nothing essential could be taken? Now, let us turn to another story, one that reveals the distance between knowing with the mind and seeing with the heart. This is the story of the one-eyed monk and the silent exchange. In ancient times, wandering monks traveled between monasteries, seeking teachings and testing their insight. Before receiving shelter, they were asked to engage in a form of spiritual dialogue, not through debate, but through presence. One evening, a tired monk arrived at a temple hidden among bamboo groves. His robes were worn, his sandals thin, yet his eyes carried the brightness of sincere inquiry. The abbot, occupied with duties, sent his long-serving attendant to receive him. This attendant had lost one eye in youth. Yet through this loss, his inner vision had grown clear and steady. The visiting monk proposed a silent exchange, believing truth could move beyond words. The attendant agreed. The traveler raised one finger. Without hesitation, the attendant raised two. The traveler smiled and lifted 3 fingers. Then, the attendant slowly formed a fist and held it between them. The traveler froze. His confidence vanished. He bowed quickly and departed. Later, he told the abbot that the attendant's understanding surpassed his own. 1 finger, he explained, was the Buddha. 2 were the teaching. 3 were the complete path. The fist revealed their unity. When the attendant heard this account, he became visibly upset. "He mocked my blindness," he protested. I answered with courtesy. Then he pressed further. I was about to strike him, and he fled. The abbot stood quietly. Two men. One exchange. Two entirely different worlds. The Buddha taught, we do not see things as they are. We see them as we are. Tonight, as your thoughts slow and the body rests, notice how often meaning arises not from reality, but from projection. Wisdom begins when we release the story and meet what is with open awareness. And in that openness, the mind gently settles, and sleep arrives naturally, like a leaf returning to water. Zen teaching speaks of what are called the 8 shifting winds of the world: approval and rejection, comfort and discomfort, abundance and lack, honor and shame. These forces move quietly through the mind, shaping perception like unseen weather, altering how every encounter is felt and understood. The attendant's sensitivity around his lost eye had formed a subtle lens. Through that lens, every gesture appeared threatening. Years of remembered glances, careless comments, and silent judgments had trained his mind to anticipate harm, even where none was intended. The traveling monk, on the other hand, carried a different filter. His longing for deep realization shaped his vision. So eager was he to encounter truth that he perceived sacred instruction within gestures born of irritation and pain. Each man was sincere. Each believed fully in what he saw. And yet both were mistaken. Neither was deceiving the other. They were simply meeting reality through the habits of their own inner world. This is how misunderstanding is born. Not from malice, but from conditioning. Look gently into your own life. How often does the mind fill silence with meaning? How often do old wounds interpret neutral words as rejection? How frequently does hope reshape events to confirm what you wish to find? A distracted tone becomes proof of disinterest. A simple suggestion feels like criticism. A quiet pause turns into judgment. Zen practice does not begin by correcting the world, but by observing the mind that interprets it. One practice is called beginner's mind, the willingness to admit, I may not know what this means. It allows space for more than one explanation, loosening the grip of certainty. Another practice is awareness of feeling. Had the attendant noticed the tightening in his chest, he might have recognized how memory was shaping perception. Had the traveler noticed his hunger for meaning, he might have questioned whether wisdom was truly being offered. A Zen teacher once said, "Your ordinary mind, that is the way." Not the perfected mind, not the spiritualized mind, but the mind as it is, seen clearly. The Buddha taught, hatred does not cease through hatred, but through understanding. If curiosity had replaced defense, if humility had softened expectation, their meeting might have become a doorway rather than a divide. Tonight, as you rest and reflect, notice how the mind adds color to events. Sense the quiet gap between what occurred and the story told about it. In that gap, clarity begins. From this understanding, we move to another teaching, one that reveals the difference between skill and mastery, between control and freedom. This is the lesson of the archer and the bridge. A young man devoted many years to perfecting his aim. He practiced in rain and heat, in silence and fatigue. His hands became steady, his breath precise. His arrows rarely strayed from their mark. His reputation spread. Competitions ended in victory. Applause followed him. With success came pride. Believing himself unmatched, he sought the ultimate test. An old Zen master said to possess not only spiritual depth but unmatched skill with the bow. The young archer arrived confidently, issued his challenge, and demonstrated his ability. Arrow after arrow found the center of the target. One shaft split another, a display of technical perfection. He turned, satisfied. The master only smiled. Instead of lifting his bow, he gestured toward the mountain path. "Come," he said softly. They climbed until the trail narrowed and the earth fell away on both sides. Before them lay a deep chasm, spanned only by a weathered log. Below, silence and shadow. Without hesitation, the master stepped onto the log. His movements were relaxed, his breath unbroken. Reaching the center, where the wood dipped and swayed, he paused. From this place of uncertainty, he raised his bow and released. The arrow flew cleanly, striking a distant tree. It was not the precision alone that mattered, but the mind that released it, steady even above the void. Here, the young archer understood. True mastery is not control of the arrow, but freedom from fear. And as the mountain wind whispered softly, the lesson settled, not in thought, but in silence. The master stepped back onto firm earth with unhurried grace and nodded toward the narrow log. "Now," he said softly, "it is your turn." The young archer approached the edge and peered into the vast emptiness below. The depth seemed endless, swallowing light and sound. His throat tightened. His hands dampened with sweat. A trembling passed through his legs before he could stop it. The bridge that had appeared manageable from a distance now felt impossibly thin, alive with danger. All the confidence built through years of practice dissolved in an instant. Skill that once felt solid now seemed fragile, almost meaningless, when placed above uncertainty. He tried to step forward. His body refused. His breath became shallow, uneven. The bow shook so violently in his hands that aiming was no longer possible. The calm focus he had relied upon vanished, replaced by raw instinct and fear. The master observed quietly, without judgment. After a moment, he spoke, his voice neither sharp nor disappointed. "You have trained the hands well," he said gently, "but you have not yet trained the mind that releases the arrow." The Buddha taught, "The mind is the forerunner of all things. What we think, we become." Here, the difference between outer skill and inner mastery was revealed. We often confuse technique with wisdom, control with understanding. We polish abilities within safe boundaries, then discover how quickly they fade when the ground beneath us is no longer secure. The young archer's excellence depended on certainty. When certainty vanished, so did his strength. True practice is not tested in comfort. It is tested where fear appears. Zen training speaks of cultivating steady presence, not the absence of fear, but the capacity to remain awake within it. The master had not crossed the bridge to prove superiority. He crossed it to demonstrate a different source of power, a mind unshaken by conditions. His arrow did not need to be perfect. It needed to be released from stillness. A Zen saying reminds us, the original mind can meet any moment. This is the confidence that does not depend on safety, but on trust in awareness itself. Tonight, consider where your abilities feel strong and where they falter. Notice the difference between confidence built on control and confidence born from presence. Life itself is the bridge, narrow, uncertain, moving beneath our feet. Balance is not found by avoiding risk, but by learning to stand calmly above the open space. True mastery is not flawless aim. It is steadiness of being wherever you find yourself standing. And from this understanding, we turn gently toward another teaching, one that speaks of release, trust, and the quiet courage to flow. This is the story of the crystal river. In the depths of a clear, luminous river, a community of small beings made their home. Above them, the water moved endlessly, carrying whispers of distant mountains and unseen seas. From birth, each creature learned the same lesson: hold fast. They clung to stones and roots, wrapping themselves tightly around whatever felt solid. The elders warned them, the current is dangerous. It will take you where you do not know. So they held on, day after day, generation after generation. But one small being began to feel weary. As he watched the current glide above, he sensed not danger, but invitation. While others complained of aching limbs and constant strain, he wondered what it might be like to stop resisting. "I am tired of gripping," he said one morning. "I do not know where the river leads, but I trust that it knows its way." Fear rippled through the community. "Let go," they cried, "and you will be broken upon the rocks." Still, the small being released his hold. At first, pain came swiftly. The river pulled him downward, rolling him against stone after stone. Each impact burned. Yet he did not grasp again. Slowly, something changed. As resistance faded, the current lifted him. The sharp rocks fell away beneath him. The struggle softened. He was no longer dragged, he was carried. Suspended in the moving water, he felt a freedom unknown before. The river no longer threatened him. It supported him. Downstream, others stared in wonder. One of their own moved with the current itself, not clinging, not sinking, but flowing. "A miracle," they whispered. "A creature like us, yet he flies." And as the river continued its quiet journey, the truth revealed itself. What we fear is often not the current, but our unwillingness to trust it. The water flowed on, gentle, endless, inviting rest. Many along the river whispered in awe, "Surely he is the chosen one, sent to rescue us all." Drifting within the gentle strength of the current, the small being heard their voices and felt only quiet compassion. "I am no savior," he called softly. "I am no different from you. The river lifts us all with equal kindness, if only we dare to loosen our grip. Our true task is not to cling to the riverbed, but to trust this movement, this vast and living journey." Yet his words did not reach them. Their cries grew louder. "Savior, Savior." Even as they spoke, their hands tightened around stone and root. They watched until the flowing figure vanished around a distant bend, then returned to their familiar grasping, spinning stories of a miraculous being who had briefly passed through their world. The Buddha gently reminds us, what we cling to is exactly what we lose. Here lies a deep paradox of the human heart. We reach for certainty, believing safety is found in holding tightly. Yet this very holding creates the tension we suffer from. Why do we resist the current when it offers to carry us? From early life, we are taught that the known is safe and the unknown is dangerous. This belief protects us at first, but later becomes a quiet prison. We imagine that by gripping roles, relationships, and fixed ideas of who we are, we can stop change itself. But life is movement, and to oppose movement is to exhaust ourselves against reality. Notice gently where you are holding on. perhaps to a relationship that has already changed its shape, perhaps to a path that no longer nourishes you, perhaps to an old image of yourself that has grown too narrow. The current will move whether we agree or not. The question is not whether change comes, but whether we meet it with resistance or with grace. The Buddha said, "All conditioned things are in motion." Water does not fight the mountain. It listens and finds its way. When we soften into life's flow, a quiet strength appears. Effort becomes ease. Fear loosens its grip. As you rest here now, what might be ready to release? A thought about tomorrow. A weight from yesterday. A story you no longer need to carry. Let the present moment hold you. Let go of what is past, the Buddha taught. Let go of what has not yet come. Let go even of what is now arising. Rest. In this surrender, we discover that the force we feared was never here to harm us, but to return us home to what we truly are. And so, we turn to another teaching, one that speaks of presence when fear seems overwhelming. This is the story of the captured warrior. Long ago in Japan, during an age of endless conflict, a skilled warrior stood among the defeated. Surrounded by fallen comrades, his strength spent, he was seized by enemy soldiers and dragged from the field. His armor was removed, his weapons taken away. At nightfall, he was thrown into a narrow stone cell. The door closed with a heavy sound that echoed through his body. Darkness settled. Silence pressed in. Soon his mind filled the space. Tomorrow they would come. He knew the customs of war. There would be questioning, then pain, then death. Images rose uninvited: iron, fire, broken flesh. His heart raced. Breath grew shallow. Cold sweat formed on his skin. Sleep felt impossible. He paced. He sat. He lay down. Still the future tormented him like a dream he could not wake from. Then, in the depth of his despair, a memory surfaced. The voice of his old Zen teacher, gentle and steady. Tomorrow is not real. Only this moment exists. At first, the words felt empty. How could tomorrow be unreal when its shadow felt so near? But as he stayed with the teaching, something softened. He noticed his breath, moving freely right now. He felt the straw beneath him, rough but harmless. He heard wind moving through distant trees, unconcerned with war or victory. In this moment he was not being tortured. In this moment he was not dying. There was only awareness, quiet and alive. The terror revealed itself as thought alone, a future imagined, not yet born. Peace descended like a gentle cloak. Breath slowed. The heart found rhythm. A small smile appeared. The Master's teaching had opened a door far greater than the prison walls could close. Within moments, the warrior slept deeply. The Buddha later said, "The only place we live is here." We suffer not from life itself, but from the stories we tell about what may come. Zen teaches that the mind, designed to protect us, often mistakes imagination for reality. Look kindly at your own thoughts. How many fears live only in the future your mind creates? Plans have their place. Preparation has its wisdom. But worry steals the peace of the only moment that exists. As the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught, because everything is changing, everything remains possible. And tonight, nothing more is required of you than to rest right here. The anxious mind tends to believe that whatever troubles us now will continue unchanged or grow heavier with time. Yet impermanence quietly teaches otherwise. Nothing remains fixed. Nothing stands still. The warrior sitting in his cell could not truly know what dawn would bring. Rescue might arrive unexpectedly. Compassion might arise in the hearts of his captors. Circumstances might shift in ways unseen. The Buddha spoke to this uncertainty when he said, "The past is already gone. The future has not yet come. There is only this moment to be lived." This teaching does not ask us to abandon responsibility or ignore practical preparation. It simply invites us to notice where our attention habitually wanders, and to gently return it to what is actually here. In Zen practice, we cultivate what is called beginner's mind, meeting each moment as if for the first time, without layering it with fear drawn from memory or imagination. When we truly arrive in the present, we often discover a quiet completeness already waiting. Resources for calm and clarity that anxious thinking never revealed. The warrior's cell did not change. The uncertainty of tomorrow remained. Yet his suffering dissolved when his awareness returned to this breath, this body, this moment. The same transformation is available to us whenever fear arises. Tonight, as your mind begins to build stories about what tomorrow might demand, remember the warrior and the voice of his teacher. Ask gently, what is happening right now? What is real in this moment? Perhaps it is the rhythm of breathing, the support beneath your body, the temperature of the air on your skin. These simple experiences anchor us in reality rather than imagination. As the Buddha taught, do not dwell in the past. Do not chase the future. Rest the mind fully in the present moment. In this instruction lies the key to the warrior's freedom and to our own. And now, we turn to a teaching about true assistance and the deeper aim of wisdom. This is the meeting between the psychiatrist and the Zen master. At a gathering of healers and teachers, a psychiatrist found himself speaking with a respected Zen master. The psychiatrist had devoted his life to helping others navigate emotional pain, studying the mind, analyzing patterns, offering tools for healing. As their conversation unfolded, a question quietly formed within him. Curious about another way of helping, he finally asked it directly. "I have spent many years learning methods to help people with their suffering," he said. "I'm interested in your approach. How exactly do you help people?" The master listened in silence, not only to the words, but to the intention beneath them. After a pause, he answered simply, "I guide them to a place where no more questions arise." The psychiatrist hesitated, unsure. "Questions are essential to growth," he replied. "How can understanding come without them?" The master smiled softly. "Questions belong to the mind that believes it is incomplete. When someone reaches what they were truly seeking, the questions fade on their own." The Buddha encouraged inquiry, yet also taught that liberation is found beyond doubt. Here lies the paradox. Truth is not discovered through endless questioning, but through arriving where questioning is no longer needed. Why do we assume that helping means providing more answers, when the deepest healing may come from dissolving the one who keeps asking? Zen points to a radical possibility. Many of our struggles persist only because we continue to ask the questions that sustain them. The psychiatrist's work seeks to understand problems, trace their causes, and manage their effects. This has value and brings real relief. Yet the master gestures toward something deeper, freedom from the framework that creates the problems themselves. Notice the questions your own mind repeats. How can I be happier? What am I missing? Who should I become? Each question assumes a lack, a gap, a seeker. But what if the seeker itself is the source of restlessness? In Zen practice, we discover that the effort to solve ourselves often perpetuates the tension. The mind that asks, "How can I find peace?" is the same mind that obscures the peace already present. The one who strains for awakening may reinforce the sense of separation. That awakening dissolves. The Master's teaching is not about silencing curiosity or rejecting learning. It is about guiding awareness to a direct experience of wholeness, where nothing needs to be added. Zen Master Bankei taught, "The unborn Buddha mind meets everything naturally." When this is realized, questions about completion simply fall away, and in their place there is rest. Difficulties do not always require fixing. Seen clearly, they are temporary patterns arising and dissolving within the wide openness of awareness itself. This does not mean that ordinary, practical questions vanish. Questions like what nourishment the body needs today, or which path to take on the way to work, continue to function naturally. They serve life rather than disturb it. The questions that fall away are the deeper ones born from the feeling that something essential is missing. The restless wondering about who we should become, or what is wrong with us, or how we might finally arrive somewhere else. The Buddha spoke gently to this truth when he said, "There is nothing to attain, nothing to accomplish, nothing lacking." These words do not dismiss effort or care. They point to a realization beyond effort, that the one who seeks is already standing within what is sought. True assistance does not always add solutions. Often it removes the mistaken assumption that life itself is a problem to be solved. Pause for a moment and observe your own mind. How much energy flows into trying to repair your existence, rather than simply inhabiting it? What remains if the questions that assume deficiency are allowed to rest? The psychiatrist supports by examining, by naming patterns, by offering tools for adjustment. This has genuine value. The Zen master supports differently, by pointing directly to what requires no adjustment at all. Not refining the branches, but touching the root. Not answering the questions, but revealing the space in which questions dissolve. Tonight, as familiar inquiries arise, can you sense what comes before them? The silent knowing that does not need explanation. The awareness that exists prior to all seeking. As the Buddha reminded us, peace does not arrive from elsewhere. It unfolds from within. The deepest help we can offer or receive is the recognition that what we have been searching for has never been absent. Questions, and not because they are resolved, but because the one who asks discovers there was never anything missing to question. And now, we turn toward a Zen story that reveals the irreplaceable nature of direct transmission. This is the story of Bankei and the messenger. In a lively capital city, where traders filled the streets and scholars debated beneath lantern light, the Zen master Bankei had just completed a season of teaching at one of the great temples. Renowned for his clarity and his ability to point students directly toward their Buddha nature, Bankei lived simply, traveling from place to place with only a small bundle of belongings, offering guidance wherever sincerity appeared. As he prepared to depart, folding his robes with care, a finely dressed gentleman approached him. His posture and silken garments suggested someone accustomed to noble households and formal duties. "Venerable teacher," the man said, bowing deeply, "I bring a request from my lord, the Baron. He has heard of your insight and longs to meet you. Circumstances prevent him today. Would you consider remaining one more night so that he may receive your teaching tomorrow?" Though students awaited him elsewhere, Bankei sensed sincerity in the request. The way of teaching often requires patience beyond convenience. "I will stay," he replied simply. That evening, the master sat quietly in meditation, preparing not words, but presence. Morning arrived with clear light and the sound of bells echoing softly through the temple halls. Bankei waited, but once again, the same gentleman appeared, this time with lowered eyes and visible regret. "Master," he said, "I bring unfortunate news. My lord has been summoned away by urgent affairs of state. Yet his wish remains unchanged. He has asked me to receive your instruction in his place and carry your teaching back to him without alteration." The man hesitated, then continued. "The Baron seeks to understand the true nature of mind. If you would speak, I will remember every word." Bankei listened without interruption. When the request ended, he sat quietly for a long moment. Then he spoke. "The way of Zen," he said gently, "is difficult to convey even when teacher and student sit face to face. To transmit it through another, no matter how sincere, is not possible." Having said this, the master fell silent. He did not elaborate. He did not offer alternatives. His stillness was the teaching itself. The gentleman waited, then bowed, and departed quietly, his task unfinished. The Buddha once said, "Be a light unto yourself." In Bankei's refusal, this truth shines clearly. Awakening cannot be borrowed. It cannot be delivered. It cannot be carried in words. Why do we so often approach spiritual truth as if it were information to be collected, summarized, and passed along? Zen reminds us that awakening is not knowledge. It is transformation. Not description, but direct seeing. Like the taste of water, it cannot be explained to the thirsty. It must be drunk. The Baron wished to understand consciousness as an object. But awareness cannot be grasped, for it is the one doing the grasping. It is like trying to look directly at your own eyes. The seeing itself is what you are seeking. Consider your own habits. How often do you study teachings instead of sitting quietly? Read descriptions of presence instead of noticing presence itself? Zen Master Dogen taught, "To study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." This forgetting cannot happen through second-hand understanding. It requires direct encounter, right here, right now. And as your breath slows and the mind gently settles, this encounter is already beginning. This kind of clear seeing does not arise from collecting ideas or building understanding piece by piece. It unfolds through quiet intimacy with what is happening right now. The messenger in the earlier tale mirrors a habit within us. We often approach awakening sideways, hoping to learn about awareness without entering it directly. We keep a comfortable distance, imagining ourselves as observers studying something called consciousness. Yet awareness is not something we possess. It is what we are. It cannot be stored, transmitted, or handed over because every experience is already shaped from it. Bankei's silence after his few words was not absence. It was instruction. In Zen, silence often teaches more clearly than speech. The pause between thoughts, the space between breaths, the open field in which sounds, sensations, and emotions appear. These cannot be captured by explanation. They reveal themselves only when the mind relaxes its grasp. This does not mean teachers are unnecessary, nor does it deny the value of guidance. True teaching simply does not replace experience. It points back, again and again, to the student's own scene. A teacher does not deliver awakening. They help remove the obstacles that hide what has always been present. Tonight, as you notice the simple fact of being aware of these words, aware of the body resting, aware of the quiet space holding it all, can you turn gently toward that awareness itself? Not trying to understand it, not naming it, just noticing. As the Buddha advised, walk the path with your own steps. No one else can breathe for you. No one else can see for you. Freedom unfolds only through direct encounter with what you have never been separate from. And now, we turn toward a story about appearances and how easily the surface of things can deceive the seeking mind. This is the story of the hungry abbot and the generous robe. In a thriving merchant district of an ancient Chinese city, where wealth announced itself through tall gates and carved stone walls, there lived a man whose prosperity was widely admired. His home overflowed with refinement, jade ornaments, flowering courtyards, servants trained to anticipate every desire. His reputation mattered deeply to him, and he took care that nothing diminished it. One rainy morning, as autumn clouds darkened the streets, a solitary figure arrived at his gate. It was a Zen abbot from the mountains, yet he appeared as nothing more than a wandering mendicant. His robe was faded and patched, his sandals worn thin, his begging bowl marked by years of humble use. He stood quietly in the rain, upright and still, with the ease of someone long acquainted with simplicity. When the gatekeeper noticed him, his face tightened with displeasure. "What do you want?" he snapped. "This house has no time for beggars." "I am traveling," the abbot replied softly. "If your master is willing, I ask only for a modest meal." The gatekeeper laughed. He saw only the torn robe, the empty bowl. "Go elsewhere," he said. "My master feeds those of worth." The abbot bowed without protest and turned back into the rain, leaving as quietly as he had come. Hours later, as sunlight broke through the clouds, the same figure returned. But now he wore his ceremonial robes, rich silk dyed gold and violet, embroidered with careful symbols. Prayer beads rested at his side, and dignity radiated from him without effort. The gatekeeper froze. His voice changed instantly. "Honored master," he exclaimed, bowing deeply, "please enter at once." The wealthy man rushed forward himself, offering praises and elaborate welcomes. "What a blessing," he said. "Our home is honored by your presence." The abbot was led into the finest dining room. A feast was prepared: fragrant rice, delicate vegetables, steamed fish, sweet confections. As the meal was placed before him, the host smiled with satisfaction. Then the abbot did something unexpected. He rose slowly, removed his magnificent robe, and folded it with great care. With calm deliberation, he placed the robe directly before the dishes, as though it were the one invited to eat. The room fell silent, and in that silence, the teaching had already begun. Rising slowly, with composed stillness, the abbot spoke in a voice gentle yet unmistakably clear. "This food," he said, "is not meant for me. It belongs to the robe." With no further explanation, he stepped beyond the threshold and disappeared down the quiet street, leaving behind untouched dishes and a household confronted by its own reflection. In that moment, the wealth of the home revealed its poverty. An ancient teaching reminds us not to mistake surface for substance. A humble garment may conceal a vast heart. Here, we see how attachment to appearances builds invisible walls between ourselves and genuine understanding. Why does the mind reach so quickly for judgment based on clothing, titles, or outward display? Zen observes that the conditioned mind creates shortcuts, labels and hierarchies that offer the comfort of certainty without the effort of true seeing. The merchant's home mirrors a pattern familiar to us all. Notice how attention shifts when someone appears polished or unrefined. How tone changes when a profession sounds impressive or ordinary. How respect rises and falls with perceived status. Yet the abbot remained unchanged. His clarity did not increase with fine robes nor diminish with rags. Only the response of others transformed. This invites a quiet inquiry. Observe where judgment still arises within you, toward the driver of a new car and the one in a weathered vehicle, toward tailored clothing and worn fabric, toward prestigious neighborhoods and modest streets. Each reaction reveals conditioning, the habit of assigning value to the external while overlooking the essential. So we arrive at a deeper question. If the world treats us differently based on presentation, who are we truly? Are we the person dressed for responsibility or the one in simple clothes at rest? The one asking for help or the one offering it? Zen speaks of the original face, the self before roles, before masks, before names. This original face remains unchanged whether praised or ignored. A Zen master once said, "That which you truly are has never been born and will never die." This teaching invites recognition of a steady presence beneath all appearances, a capacity for awareness, kindness, and wisdom untouched by opinion. By feeding the robe instead of himself, the abbot revealed how often we engage with symbols rather than souls. We honor titles, uniforms, reputations, while missing the living being standing before us. Imagine how this understanding might soften daily encounters. The server who brings your meal, the clerk behind the counter, the stranger asking for directions. Each carries the same quiet dignity as the most celebrated guest. The practice is not to reject social forms, but to hold them gently, to recognize roles without confusing them for essence. Tonight, as you reflect on the many identities you move through, professional, personal, private, can you sense the unchanging awareness that witnesses them all? The Buddha taught that one phrase offering peace outweighs countless empty words. The abbot's silent gesture spoke across generations. And so we continue our journey toward another story, one that points to the heart of freedom. This is the story of the student and the master's heart. In a quiet monastery garden, where petals drifted softly upon the air, a young student approached his teacher during the fading light of evening. The master sat beneath an old maple tree, still as the earth itself. The student, devoted and sincere, had practiced diligently for years, yet lately a deeper questioning had begun to stir. Sitting beside his teacher, he spoke with careful honesty. "When I was younger," he said, "I longed for my family to be proud of me. I worked hard, hoping my achievements would earn their joy. Were you ever like this?" The master turned, meeting the student's eyes with warmth. After a long pause, he replied, "Yes, very much so." Relief washed through the student. "And why did you seek their pride so strongly?" he asked. "What was driving that desire?" The master smiled gently. "I believed that if they were proud of me, their love would feel secure. But beneath that hope was something even deeper." The student leaned in, listening. "I wanted their approval, the Master continued softly, so that I might feel justified in loving myself. Their praise would be proof that I was worthy, even in my own eyes. The garden grew quieter as stars began to appear. One day, the Master said, I encountered a new possibility. What if acceptance did not need to come from outside? What if love could arise without permission? The student felt something loosen within his chest. What if worth, the Master continued, could be as steady as breath, unchanged by approval or rejection? The student understood. And that realization, he said, was the beginning of your awakening? The Master nodded. That is when the journey truly began. Not by seeking more, but by discovering what was already whole. After a pause, the student asked quietly, and did the longing ever return? The Master chuckled softly, his laughter blending with the evening wind. Oh yes, the Master said softly, the ego did not simply disappear. Habitual patterns rarely dissolve in a single moment. They linger, like echoes in a quiet valley. Yet something essential had changed. I was no longer completely fused with those desires. I no longer mistook them for who I was. He gestured gently toward the darkened garden, where small lights drifted in the air. Fireflies shimmered, appearing and vanishing without effort. I learned to see my need for approval as movements like these, he continued. Brief illuminations, not commands. I could notice those thoughts with kindness, even curiosity, but they no longer defined my value. So, you still cared what others thought? The student asked quietly. The Master nodded. I respected their views. I listened, but I stopped giving them authority over my peace. Approval became like weather passing through the sky. Sometimes warm, sometimes cold, but never again the source of my identity. A gentle joy settled across the Master's face. I had never known such freedom, he said. It was as though invisible chains I had carried for decades fell away without effort. The love I had searched for everywhere was revealed to have been present all along. An old teaching reminds us, if we truly loved ourselves, we would not harm ourselves with cruel thoughts, with harsh judgments, with choices born from fear. At the heart of the Master's awakening was a simple truth. Much of human suffering arises from the belief that love must be earned, that we must prove our worth through success, approval, or perfection. But here we encounter one of the most radical insights of the path. Self-love is not a prize. It is not payment for achievement. It is our original inheritance. We are worthy not because of what we do, but because we exist. And yet, why does unconditional self-acceptance feel so unfamiliar? From early life, we absorb messages that love depends on performance, that approval follows obedience, success, or pleasing others. Over time, we learn to speak to ourselves in the same conditional voice. These habits feel normal. So normal that gentleness toward ourselves can feel strange. Our culture reinforces this forgetting, constantly suggesting that fulfillment lies somewhere outside us. Each message quietly implies that we are not yet enough. Consider how much energy is spent managing how we are perceived. How often authenticity is softened to gain acceptance. How easily self-worth becomes dependent on praise or criticism. When love for oneself becomes unconditional, something profound stabilizes. Affection from others can be enjoyed without clinging. Criticism can be met without collapse. Because worth is no longer negotiable. The Buddha taught that if one searches the entire universe for someone more deserving of love than oneself, that person will not be found. You yourself are worthy of your own care. This is not self-absorption. It is recognition of truth. Tonight, resting here, can you sense the quiet presence that knows these words? This awareness that notices thoughts, sensations, and breath is untouched by success or failure. It remains open, clear, and whole, like space itself. What would it be like to treat this presence with patience? To offer yourself the same tenderness you would give a child learning, the same compassion you would extend to a dear friend in pain? The Buddha reminded us that hostility is never ended by hostility. Only by gentleness does it dissolve. And self-criticism is never healed by more self-criticism. Only kindness creates the inner conditions for real transformation. In discovering this love within, we see that the freedom we sought through approval was always quietly alive in our own hearts. Now, as this peaceful reflection comes to rest, notice something simple. The calm you feel has not been added from outside. It has been remembered. The stillness you touch does not belong to stories or voices. It belongs to you, waiting patiently. An old teaching reminds us that health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth, and trust the greatest bond. Seen through this wisdom, contentment is not found by collecting more experiences. It arises naturally when we rest fully in this moment. Each story tonight has pointed to the same quiet truth. That struggle fades when resistance softens. That freedom emerges when control is released. That peace deepens when illusion is seen through. Even if thoughts continue to appear, even if the mind wanders, the understanding planted tonight remains. A gentle refuge you can return to whenever life feels heavy. As you drift toward rest, notice how nothing here asked you to become someone new. These teachings did not send you elsewhere. They guided you home, to the simplicity of being, to the breath moving now, to the awareness listening, to the peace that needs no conditions. Tonight, you did not think your way here. You arrived by feeling. As you carry this softness into sleep and into waking life, remember, peace is not something to achieve. It is something to remember. May this remembrance walk with you gently, offering clarity when things feel crowded and stillness when the world feels loud. Thank you for resting here with Silent Monk. May your sleep be deep, and may your heart be light.